to remake this video because I didn't realize that it wasn't playing. But so I had a conversation earlier because there is a group or a married couple that comes on Facebook all the time, and a lot of people are not really pleased with the treatment of the wife. At first I wasn't pleased, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're acting out scenes to show you what the right thing is, but something still just isn't sitting right with me, because I look at her and I'm like, she seems like such a sweet individual. She has these black circles under her eyes, and it reminds me of this congregation I went to when I was in Springfield, right? And they would say, oh, well, women can't speak in the church because, Timothy. But then Paul says a woman must prophesy with her head covered. So if I can't speak in the church, how am I supposed to prophesy? Well, a couple weeks later after this situation, the husband actually gets arrested for domestic abuse. He was abusing her. And so there is a lot of men that are using Christ, they're using the church, they're using their BHI doctrine, all right, to try to subdue women. There were all sorts of people in the chat, the comments, and they were like, oh, well, if you're not serving your husband before your children, that's why you're single. So basically what you're saying is, what's more important to you is marriage and not being a servant of God, because Paul and Mary were both servants of God and could literally run circles around you, and yet they were single. And so with the BHI especially, it seems like they want to try to give the illusion that you're less worth if you aren't married, especially as a woman. They try to teach that that's the only thing that a woman is here for, and it's not true. Now, I'm not married, but God has given me dreams of my husband on several occasions. I ask from time to time, and he'll give me a dream. And so he's trying to basically reassure me type deal. So it's not that I'm in disagreement to marriage, or that I'm fearful that I'm gonna be single for the rest of my life. That's not what it is. What I'm saying is, you're condemning the servants and the sons and daughters of God for not being married, and you're going to have a problem with God at that point, because you are basing someone's righteousness off of something that doesn't necessarily make somebody righteous. Now, if it were true, then there would not be a bunch of non-believers that are married, and they are the most responsible for divorce as well. So you can be married and be unrighteous, all right? Now, I believe that a lot of these men, and I've been praying about it, because I don't believe that many of them are who they say that they are. As it's written in Romans, not all of Israel is Israel, okay? So there are people in these BHI camps, and they're not Israel. They are pretending to be Israel knowingly, or they don't know that they're not Israel. And so, I was like, I just don't understand why these men are just so rude and disrespectful to the women on here. And I was like, are they even Israel? Like, what? And one man specifically, he was just coming after me, just saying the most disrespectful things. And I'm like, well, Israel had light in all of their dwellings in Egypt. That light is the light of the word. It's God. And so if you cannot bridle your tongue by any means, and you are badgering the weaker vessel, then I ask you to ask yourself who you're actually following, all right? And if you are actually Israel, because this specific man, God said, was a Canaanite. And the thing with the Canaanites is they inherit that curse of Canaan that was passed on to them because their father Ham, all right, was disobedient. So, with that said, sometimes you are carrying those curses, and if you don't repent in the way that you're supposed to repent, it's going to play out. Canaan was supposed to be a servant of servants, all right? So we're talking about someone that probably doesn't have too much light in their dwellings, all right? So he said this about several people, BHI, that they're not even Israel, all right? And you have some of these people that are ruling over the Israelites in these BHI camps. And someone brought up a good point, even though I said it first and he probably just stole it from me. I say things in these groups all the time and nobody thinks about them, and then all of a sudden they're saying it. But the camps, all right? These camps are at each other's throats. It's almost like football teams or basketball teams. But you will not see Levi and Judah and Ephraim and Manasseh and Simeon against each other in the camps. They're moving together. All right, they're going where God has told them to go. They're setting up their tents, and then when God is done with them wherever they are, He tells them to move. And so, why are you having these all-out fights? I'm from IUIC. I'm from ISA. I'm from what is it? GOCC is one of them, I think. You have all these different camps that are going against one another. All right, you're supposed to be brothers if you're actually Israel. And then secondly, that's not how it was divided. It was divided by tribe. So you're not even right in that kind of thing. So you can't tell me that this is nothing different than a denomination. Okay? And the continual regurgitations of the same kind of doctrines. Right now, I don't know if it's mostly BHI, but I feel like there's a lot of non-believers that are kind of coming on the scene, and they're like, oh yeah, polygyny, but some of the BHI actually promote it. And they're really the first ones that I heard talk about it. And so, this is something that God is not supporting. He's not behind you on it. And no matter how many doctrines, no matter how many scriptures that you try to use to support it, it's not God's ultimate will. All right? It's not His ultimate will. You need to stop supporting it. And just because you see patriarchs in the Bible doing it does not mean that's what His will was for man. Lamech was the first that was mentioned as having two wives. And someone actually pulled up something from an extra biblical text that actually said that Satan said one wife is his, and then the other wife was Lamech's. So Lamech is the son of Cain. If you are disobedient to God, you can actually pass curses down to your children. That's how Canaan got cursed. And so it's the same with Lamech. Cain was disobedient to God, and so he started begetting offspring that were disobedient to God, that were cursed. And so this is where the whole polygyny thing is coming from. If you look at the text, you will see patriarchs like Abraham, Jacob, David, Solomon. They were all having issues concerning this. Abraham was given, what's her name? I don't remember, but a concubine, I guess, by Sarah, because Sarah did not trust what God had said about getting a child. Jacob didn't even want Leah. He wanted Rachel, but he was deceived, just like he was a deceiver, and so he ended up with two wives, and then he ended up with more. This is coming from deception. It's coming from distrust. All right, and then you have David, who was a serial, Mr. Steal Your Girl, literally killed a man for a woman. You're out of control. You literally took somebody's wife. All right, and then unalive. That is like some real crazy stuff. And God stuck by your side, bruh. God better than me. Cause look, it ain't going down like that. And then I think because of his serial treachery, he passed it down to Solomon. And Solomon had all these wives, all these concubines. I don't even think he was really with them like that. I think he was just like, let me just act like I'm with them just cause. He's like, I gotta get these contracts with these nations. You get a house, you get a house, you get a house. I would have been like, let me have the furthest house away from you. Make sure there's a pool, Solomon. I'm not like, I need all the comforts. I think these girls was just like, all right, we're getting all the comforts. So they said, yeah, let me be one of them girls. I know I'm 20 and Solomon's like 50. Let me just stay away from him. Anyway, so he was a serial polygynist. And he ended up falling away because of all his wives. All right. I don't even think it was about their beauty, man. I think it was just like the contracts. And maybe he liked traveling and he said, I'm going to get a girl in every country. So I'm going to get 3 girls in every country. So, these things are things that happen when you fall off the truth. And that's what happened with them. They fell off the truth. And so they ended up with all these wives, which sometimes represents idolatry. And in the New Testament, the Messiah is like, if you even look on another woman with lust, then you've already created adultery. And then why that is because it was already in your heart. And then so you started looking. Okay? So all it is a sign that you're adulterous. You're supposed to have one wife from the beginning, but what are y'all teaching? You're teaching other things. You're teaching doctrines that don't align with the spirit and the truth, and you would know if you actually asked. And so, like I said, this is my fear. Like, there's so many people that are teaching things that they shouldn't be, and it's to the point where it's like people are lying to save face. And that's what's scary about this situation, because if you lie, then you're going to have a problem too. So you might as well be humble and not lie, and just change the doctrine. Just change it. This is kind of serious, because he says in the last days people will be held accountable for every idle word they speak. And he also says not everybody should be a teacher. And so, I have full faith that when I ask, God tells me the truth, and then I share it. And then a lot of times people trample upon it. I would say most of the time people trample upon it, but at the end of the day I told them the truth, and if they don't want to accept it, well, then that's on them at that point. All right, the kingdom of heaven, I don't think people understand. He showed me Zechariah 13 and 14 the last time. And so what that means is 2/3 will die off, 1/3 will make it through the fire. And I don't think people understand just how much they're not going to make it through the fire. You're going to be the 2/3 that die off. They got you out here thinking that you're going to die and go to heaven. No, heaven comes to earth. You get a new heaven and new earth. So you need to be doing right on this earth. And the only way to do that is to do what he told you to do in the scriptures. But if you're consistently trying to follow man's doctrines, you're not going to follow God's. That's what he told his Pharisees. You teach doctrines of men as if they're precepts of God, thus negating the law of God. That's why I'm consistently arguing with Gentiles about the feast and the Sabbath. If you want to make up something about Acts 13:42, where it literally says the Gentiles begged for the word to be taught to them the next Sabbath, which means they were honoring the Sabbath. If you want to sit here and argue with me about that, then I just really wonder. I really wonder why you think that you're going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Just simply because you don't want to be wrong? You're about to get it. You don't understand that you're about to get it. So it's just frustrating. And I think that's what it is realizing where we are at this time, realizing that a lot of people are not going to make it, that I tried to tell them, that other people tried to tell them, that they're going to blame people, because they didn't want to follow in spirit and in truth. The whole shebang, all right? Someone said recently that the BHI are going to be purged, which I think what God is going to do is he's going to reveal who's who in the BHI, whoever's a Canaanite, whoever's a Hamite, whoever might be a Shemite, but not necessarily an Israelite. And the same thing with the Hebrew, because Esau was also a Hebrew and a Shemite. He just wasn't an Israelite. And so I do believe that some of these BHI are actually Edomites. And that's the other frustrating thing about this situation, because they keep saying that the white man is Esau. I don't agree. All right, there might be some, but I don't think it's all of them. All right, and I believe the reason why they're saying that too is because they don't want people to know that they are Esau. I show people Timon. I show people Edoma and Isnt. Edoma and Isnt are two tribes in Nigeria. Isnt as in Esau, Edoma as in Edom. All right, Timon was the grandson of Esau. So these are very much black tribes, all right? Probably they are the original Edomites. And yet you're over here, you're trying to assign this to white people. You're wrong, all right? So you're doing that as a cover-up. You don't want people to know about many of these black elites who are Esau. That's what it is. And I actually think I meet them on occasion. I met one girl last year when I was in Nashville. And she reminded me so much of my ex-friend, right? And I think the eyes were the same, everything. And she said, I'm Edoma. I think she said she was Edoma. I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh. Well, we seem similar. But then she started talking about, oh, well, I just want to date a white boy. And everything was very vain with her and that kind of stuff. And that's exactly how my friend was. And I think this is probably one of the ways in which Esau kind of manifests himself, because I believe that Esau had a lot of traits that were of the dark kingdom, and one of them was probably vanity. And so I met someone recently, and I was like, I guess God had told her she's a Hebrew, but I don't think she's an Israelite. I think she's Edomite. But anyway, I'm not going to go off on a tangent. I need to pray to God more about that. But I just really feel as if they're lying about who they are. And I do pray that God reveals who's who, just so that we can know. But we need to get off all these false doctrines, all right? And we need to stop condemning people, all right? Because you're supposed to judge. Actually, another word for judge is condemn, but not for the wrong reasons. Not because somebody's not married. And this is the thing, they want you to get married to them so that they can have control over you as well. These are probably not your Israelites. So anyway, y'all be blessed. Have a good one. Bye.